continuing. So another person who was a rapper before there was rap was the white uh, artist Chris Bouchillon, who made a song called Talking Blues, where basically he played the guitar, he played blues, but he talked or rapped the lyrics rather than singing. This is something that was done in 1926 or 1927. This is before the Jubilaires did their song Noah. Now, in this debate over uh, the origins of hip hop, which wrongly is taken as the origin of rap, those who are in the FBA and ADOS movement are ignorant of, I say lacking knowledge when I say ignorant, of Chris Bouchillon, and they are also ignorant of and defensive of uh, African chanting traditions. Moving on from or going back to Chris Bouchillon, we'll now move on to what is known as Ima Mbum, which I know I'm not pronouncing right. This is basically another chanting tradition which I will read something on that. We will read something on this. If we can. So it says, Ima Mbum, an ancient Igbo art form that has refused to die. So this is ancient. This is not something that is recent. It says, Ima Mbum is a hybrid of song and speech. Utilized originally by Igbo masquerade societies, it is a specialized public performance used to inform, educate, and of course entertain. Metaphors, factoids, and popular expressions are seamlessly blended in telling tales in a fashion that is not unlike that used commonly by stand-up comedians. The performers well acknowledged facts the performers tell acknowledged facts which are often twisted and colorful and colored in ways that convey a sense of ease and jocularity. So I don't speak Igbo, but basically what this guy is doing, I'm not gonna play it because permission, but basically what he is doing is right now is emceeing. Now the microphone is a modern invention, but the recitation, uh, the chanting again, that's something that is ancient. The fact that Pigmeat Markham and the Jubilaires were chanting, we can't just say that, that they are the ones who invented that. Nor can we say that uh, the white artist uh, Chris Bouchillon invented chanting either. However, if we're just going by chronology, then Chris Bouchillon, who wrote and played the song Talking Blues, precedes the Jubilaires. So if you're going to say that uh, Count Machuki got rap from Black Americans based upon chronology, then you would have to conclude that Black Americans got Talking Blues from Chris Bouchillon because he is the one that is given credit for that particular for doing that. Now, maybe there were maybe there were black people who did it before, but if we're just going by recorded, what's on record, then of course swinging on back to Ijala, none of the Ijala was recorded until recently. It was not until there were the phonograph, I think it is a phonogram or whatever recording instruments were invented that we were able to even know what music, certain music sounded like other than sheet music. And not all music was composed. In closing this out, to just show you this, just interesting, not really related, but the rapper MF Doom, now deceased, who performed raps behind a mask, and the Imma people, or they performed their chants behind a mask. All right, so DJ Quick, famous West Coast rapper and DJ in the studio. We see here the large speakers. Basically, now what he is doing is he's uh, arranging music. Basically, hip hop is interesting because it involves basically using pre-recorded music as each as if each recording was an instrument unto itself, and then combining it to create something new. So there would be some drums programmed into the music, and some other instruments. But again, like the Jamaican sound system culture, live instruments are not as important as elect as machinery. Going into this, the beat or percussion is important in hip hop. And what we see here are Ewe drummers. Ewe are people who live in Togo, Benin, Ghana, and parts of Nigeria. That whole land where they live is known as Ewe land. Drumming is very important in the Ewe culture. The Ewe are related to other people who speak languages in the Be family of Niger Congo languages, and the Ewe and other Be people were imported during the transatlantic human trafficking to uh, Haiti and also to America, in particular New Orleans and other places. So closing that out. Here to Igbo instruments. I'm just showing this because of the importance of percussion in West Africa. Although I can't prove it, I would not be surprised if knowledge of the thumb piano did not play some role or transfer over to the piano, the organ or the piano. Then we have wind instruments, which I would not be surprised had some help in transitioning over to instruments like the trumpet, the trombone, the saxophone, and so on. And the importance of the drum, cowbells, even using pots as percussion instruments. We can close this out and go down here to Congo Square, which is supposed to have been the birthplace of jazz. Jazz is one of the musics that is used in making hip hop. Congo Square was a place where African traditions could continue in North America. It says 5 things you didn't know about Congo Square. I might not read all 5. From the birth of jazz to the commercialization of voodoo, Congo Square had a lot to do with shaping New Orleans culture. The bambula and other African dances were performed at Congo Square on Sunday afternoons. Anglo-Protestant newcomers to New Orleans were both fascinated and appalled by the scene. So it says, the strong presence of people of Congo descent most likely influenced Congo Square's name. So people who want to credit FBA or ADOS and ignore the African origins of these things, I don't understand. But anyways, in the latter half of the 19th century, writer George Washington Cable theorized that the term Congo, labeling both the square and the place, came from people of Congo Angola origin who had represented the largest percentage of Africans in New Orleans since 1820. Around the 1850s, Circus Square became another popular name for the gathering place due to Senor Gaetano's Congo Circus. The circus was a popular part of New Orleans leisure and featured a carousel, tricks on horses, and a monkey handler. Okay, then it tells you about 2. Smugglers and revolutionaries brought an even greater African influence to the square. In 1808, U.S. constitutional ban was placed on the importation of enslaved people from Africa, but smugglers still kidnapped and snuck them into Louisiana territory. The increasing amount of Africans in New Orleans brought an influx of music, language, and practices to Congo Square. From 1809 to 1810, about 9,000 new immigrants entered Louisiana. Now, people would say, well, some of them were immigrants, and some of them were, unfortunately, imports. Following the Saint Domingue Revolution and the establishment of the Republic of Haiti, these immigrants, many of whom were enslaved and free people of African descent, helped to boost cultural practices in the square as well. 3. Congo Square acted as a place of African worship, leading to the evolution and commercialization of voodoo. So I could read all that, but I'll skip because this is more of what is the more important thing I say about this. 4. The habanera rhythm developed in Congo Square and is an essential component of jazz. The African derived rhythm called the habanera was embodied in many of the songs and dances performed in Congo Square. It's a lively 3-beat rhythm that can be heard in songs such as Quan Patat La Chui. Uh, Congo Square is often sometimes referred to as the birthplace of jazz, with pianist Jelly Roll Morton declaring that the habanera must be present in order for music to be labeled as jazz. He often referred to it as a Spanish tinge, and the rhythm of the habanera was adapted into the second line beat. So, we go into this thing about rice cakes, but I won't. But here is the site if you want to see 64parishes.org 5/5 things you didn't know about Congo Square. Closing that out, we now go into the Esan people of Nigeria. And again, we're dealing with the origins of hip hop. Before there was breakdance, there was Igba Bornalimi of the Esan people of Edo State, Nigeria, Africa. So now this is from Reddit. Reddit, this person calls themselves Next Fucking Level. Before there was breakdance, there was Igba Bornalimi of the Esan people of Edo State, Nigeria. So we see here someone performing some dance moves. It involves him doing some groundwork. Now, once again, although we see this person doing something now, this is something that was supposedly performed going back before recorded history. So he is not imitating anyone. This is just simply, it just happened to be recorded at this point in time. You have to realize that there weren't a lot of, there wasn't a lot of travel to certain parts of Africa. There wasn't a lot that was known about what was going on in Africa, which is why it was known as the Dark Continent. Not just because the people there have dark skin, but because people were ignorant of what was happening in Africa. Closing this out, we go to Breakdance 1940. Something, and we see someone where he's leapt into the air. He's gonna do a acrobatic move. This is from the 1940s, and it says world's first breakdancer. But if breakdancing is simply acrobatic dancing, then no, he would not be the first person to do that. And I just typed this in because there's also been debate about who was the first Puerto Rican breakdancer. Maybe Google was wrong, but what I got was Shabadoo, and it says, what does it say about him? Anyways, more about when he died. Okay, it says, well, he was Puerto Rican. I think I read somewhere it says he was Puerto Rican and African American, but which makes this debate interesting. I can't find it. We see different moves being done. Some of these moves are moves that you would find in capoeira. And capoeira's roots are Angola, but it spread to Brazil. There may have been a variant of it known as knocking and kicking. It says, okay, so Adolfo Quinones, dancer, choreographer, and cultural icon known as Shabba-Doo, dies at 65, December 30th, 2020. Dubbed hip hop's first matinee item by Dance Magazine, Adolfo Gordon Quinones' father was Puerto Rican and his mother was African American, although it doesn't end up. I know what it says. So there we go. And closing that out, Jelly Roll Morton. Now, in one of my earliest tunes, New Orleans Blues, you can notice the Spanish tinge. In fact, if you can't manage to put touches of Spanish in your tunes, you will never be able to get the right seasoning I call for jazz. Jelly Roll Morton from Alan Lomax's book, Mr. Jelly Roll. So that's Jelly Roll Morton, and he is one of the pioneers of jazz. So that is connecting jazz to the Latino culture via actually Afro Cuban or Afro Latino uh, rhythms. One of the what he calls the Spanish tinge is known as the tresillo, habanero, and I don't speak Spanish, but way back in the elementary school, I had Spanish, so I can sort of pronounce it, but I can't speak it. Closing that out. Blues 1920s. Blues is another component of hip hop. This is a blues band we see here, men with guitars, even the suits, which you can see as like a blues aesthetic. And then closing that out, by the way, we know that blues is considered an American art form and essentially a black American art form. Not that the suit has to do with anything, but this man is playing a kora. A kora is a Senegambian string instrument, and many of the people who would later create the blues in America came from the Senegambia region of Africa. So closing that out, Halam player, again, Senegambian. Emphasis on string instrument, a griot. Halam player, Senegal. We can close that out. Going to James Brown, the godfather of soul, another essential ingredient of hip hop, since many people sampled him and b-boys would dance to his music. So, you can't forget Mr. James Brown, the godfather of soul, who was an African American. Could have shown you with the perm, but we're getting to the roots, so I decided to get to his roots. Closing that out. Back to the sound system.